Good afternoon and welcome to Leatherhead's webinar on new and emerging functional ingredients with nutrition and health benefits. I'm Jenny Arthur and I head up the nutrition and membership teams here at Leatherhead, and today I'm joined by Annie Law Robin, one of our senior regulatory consultants. New and emerging functional ingredients with health benefits are an exciting and dynamic area. And during this webinar, I will be looking at the consumer and scientific perspectives, and Annie Law will be focusing on the regulatory considerations when launching products with emerging functional ingredients. In our 2020 members annual trend report, if you would like a copy, please email membership@leatherheadfood.com. We identified 3 key strategic themes of health, sustainability, and regulatory divergence, based around the innovation trends we have been seeing. COVID has accelerated the response to these trends with a culture of national response, and there is an increase in regulatory divergence and gaps between innovation driven by the consumer and regulatory permissibility. Regulatory functions will need to move towards compliance by design and move away from being simply review-centered and more towards strategically focused function. From the health perspective, there are more health-conscious consumers interested in the nutritional quality of their products with added health benefits and the use of functional ingredients. Consumers are more aware of processing, and younger consumers are embracing the health agenda more, whereas this traditionally has been in the older age groups. As we all know, there is a never-ending innovation cycle, with companies producing innovative products that will consolidate the brand's existence. A lot of energy goes into the point of inception, being driven by consumer demand, technological investment, and regulatory frameworks, all of which will determine the ease or complexity of a global market entry plan. At Leatherhead, we believe that the development and marketing of new and emerging functional ingredients are a balance between 3 main factors, which are highlighted here: consumer perception, science and technology, and regulatory compliance. As I mentioned, I will focus on the consumer and science and technology parts, and Annie Law on the regulatory compliance. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what consumers are looking for. Firstly, sustainable nutrition. Consumers are looking for foods that are good for their health but without impacting the planet. Plant-based is becoming more mainstream. Fruit and vegetables, whole grains, and fiber intakes are low, and consumers are looking for easy and convenient ways to eat these foods. With non-dairy alternatives, there's a need to consider the nutrients in dairy equivalents, so for example calcium, vitamin D and protein, to make sure consumers' diets contain the vitamins and minerals they need. Protein quality is also important, and incorporating all essential amino acids. In terms of transparency, consumers want to know more about the products that they buy, from the impact on the environment to why ingredients are in products. Secondly, let's look at functional ingredients and health benefits. The most common health benefits consumers are looking for is improving their immunity, enhancing their mood, more energy, digestive health, and weight management. Consumers are looking for nutrient-dense products to improve the nutrition content of their diets. Immunity has been a focus in 2020 due to COVID-19, and consumers are becoming increasingly interested in boosting immunity levels as a preventative measure. A newer area of focus is reducing the number of ingredients in products, and therefore using multifunctional ingredients with nutritional and functional capabilities. Ingredients lists need to be short and meaningful, as consumers are interested in why ingredients have been used. Consumers remain interested in natural products, so more natural sources of ingredients are becoming increasingly important, for example using extracts. In addition, there's a need to consider the safety of products, so finding natural preservation methods. In the plant-based area of innovation, shelf life limitations, flavour profiles and nutrient density still needs to be fully understood. And substantiated claims are also important as consumers are looking for claims on products that are real and reliable. Let's now look at mental, emotional and physical well-being. There has been an increased focus on mental and emotional health, which has been accelerated due to the COVID pandemic. Habits, routines and rituals have become increasingly important over the last year in order to stay focused on positive mental health. As old routines like getting ready and going to work have altered in the last year and new routines have developed, for example, family lunch and dinner. Deciding on what to eat and preparing food has become a main focus in the last year, and people have become more mindful about what they are eating. There is increasing amounts of scientific research in this area, for example, looking at the gut-brain axis and the use of new ingredients with added health benefits, which we'll go into in more detail later. And lastly, preventative nutrition. This is proactively eating healthier foods that are more nutrient dense to improve the nutrition content of people's diets. As said previously, COVID has had an impact on this, particularly in the area of immunity, and people are, for example, purchasing more products containing probiotics. Gut health has been on the agenda for a while, but we're beginning to see ingredients added to products you would not normally associate with gut health. For example, snacks. We're seeing more prebiotics and probiotics being used, and fermented foods are becoming more mainstream. As we're living longer, consumers are wanting to remain active for longer, and so healthy aging is becoming increasingly important, where physical activity and protein intake are important for mobility, cognitive health, and memory. Hydration is also important and often forgotten about. We have a number of white papers on the members page of our website which look at some of the nutrition related issues that are of interest to consumers and our members. So please do go and have a look at them. So based on the consumer trends, companies need to be thinking about new and emerging functional ingredients from natural sources that are safe and will deliver the health benefits that consumers are looking for. So the key areas of interest that we are going to be highlighting in this webinar are cognitive health, gut health, skin health, and stress. Okay, let us firstly look at nootropics for cognitive health. Nootropics can help brain, mental performance and focus, and it's suggested that they can help prevent the decline in cognitive performance as seen in people suffering from dementia. Consumers are looking to take preventative action for various health issues, including improving memory, alertness and speed of thinking. I think we could all do with being a bit sharper. Nootropics can be either synthetic, for example, pharmaceutical drugs like amphetamines, or natural, for example, bioactives, botanicals like ginkgo biloba, phytochemicals, omega fatty acids and vitamins are all classic examples coming from foods. Bioactive compounds or bioactives are extra nutritional constituents that are found in small quantities in foods, providing health benefits beyond the basic nutritional value of the product. Research into ingredients has mostly been in the area of botanicals, and we've listed some examples here. For example, Patsan ginseng and lion mane mushroom. There is already some well-established research in this area, but a lot of research is needed to understand how ingredients work to help improve performance. One of the mechanisms is thought to be helping to increase, for example, dopamine levels. It's very important to understand the mechanism of action, as this is required if you want to put a health claim on products. This needs to be carefully considered at the point of inception. Do I have enough information as part of the substantiation dossier? Okay, now let's look at postbiotics and paraprobiotics for gut health. This is a relatively new area. We already know a lot about probiotics and prebiotics, but postbiotics and paraprobiotics are worth keeping an eye on. A good example of an existing products that contain these substances is yogurt. The interest in these substances is driven by the product development angle. Product developers would not have to worry about the survivability of the microorganisms in product applications and can exploit postbiotics and paraprobiotics for similar benefits. Postbiotics are substances released or produced by probiotics and so are byproducts or waste products of the fermentation process carried out by probiotics in the intestines. Paraprobiotics are dead organisms and therefore more stable during processing as they are less sensitive to heat. With respect to the use of both of these substances, there is a bit of a journey to go on before these can be used. Apart from understanding the mechanisms of action, you need to consider the safety and toxicology profiles, as well as the regulatory frameworks, which are designed to protect the consumers in terms of safety consumption. Okay, now let's look at the skin microbiome and skin cosmetics. The reason for including this here is to show that existing food ingredients currently used in food and beverage products can also be used in cosmetic projects, and this is a new area of investment for ingredient companies. Historically, microbes have been perceived as something to be removed from the skin. However, studies on the skin microbiome are still in their early days. As research progresses, it's becoming increasingly clear that the skin microbiome indeed plays a role in keeping the skin in good condition. In fact, evidence is pointed towards the fact that imbalances of the skin microbiome may be associated with skin disorders like acne. Cosmetic products being directly applied to the skin could have a key role in keeping the microbiome in good condition. And cosmetic products tackling the skin microbiome are a rising trend. Emerging approaches of adding actual microbes or probiotics to products are being explored. Ingredient examples include inulin, a well-known food ingredient that is used, for example, in sugar reduction. However, it also promotes bacterial growth and may also be used to improve skin condition. Some skincare brands are adding lactobacillus species into their formulations to help rebalance the skin microbiome. Others are developing proprietary bacteria, either as an ingredient or as an ingredient delivery mechanism. However, you also need to consider the regulatory viability of using these ingredients in cosmetics. Okay, and lastly in this section, let's look at adaptogens for stress health. Herbs and botanicals can help the body to adapt to stress, and there is a lot of research going on in this area. Again, there is a need to understand the mechanism of the stress response, as the stress response is a very complex process, involving many hormones and neurotransmitters. Whilst the stress responses are well understood, the mechanisms of actions remain poorly understood. On the right-hand side of the slide are botanicals that are thought to help minimize stress, and there is some scientific evidence about trying to understand the mechanism of action. And there is a lot of research going on, all of which will help to support health claims. We have a new white paper on adaptogens which will be published in the next couple of months, and if you would like a copy, please contact membership@leatherheadfood.com. During this section of the webinar, we've given you some examples of new and emerging functional ingredients, but there is a need to consider the extraction and delivery of the bioactives, as this will affect the efficacy of the functional benefits, and this is a quality marker that consumers will associate with the brand. In the next couple of slides, we'll look at the extraction and delivery of bioactives. Okay, firstly, we'll look at the extraction of bioactives. There are several emerging technologies available for improving the extraction of functional properties of ingredients, from leaves, stems and roots of botanicals to pure extracts. The use of pure extracts in supplement and food and beverage applications can produce more of the health benefits owing to the increased bioavailability. However, this needs to be used in conjunction with technologies that can ensure protection and delivery. So, extraction technologies, there are several available and ready to use currently. However, there's been some development of emerging technologies which are gaining attention for the enhanced extraction in terms of amount and quality. So, for example, ultrasound assisted, microwave assisted, and enzyme assisted technologies, all of which are being touted as green, clean, and efficient. Here we've focused on ultrasound assisted, which is based around the development of small bubbles which break through the plant cell walls, therefore releasing more effectively and more efficiently the bioactive compounds from the cells. Emerging technologies offer greater bioavailability. There is a need to understand what the regulatory implications are of using each technology in the markets where the products will be launched. Okay, let's look at the delivery mechanisms of the bioactives. So, the delivery of bioactive compounds can be two-pronged. One is the enhanced protection profile, and the other is the enhanced delivery profile. Some bioactives can be more prone to degradation, and it's important that the bioactives are protected during the product's shelf life. With respect to the delivery profile, this is more in line with targeted delivery and enhanced bioavailability. As we all know, nanotechnologies allow us to do both, encapsulating to protect the bioactives and size reduction using very small droplets to better deliver the bioactives. So what are the advantages of using nanotechnologies? The size, surface area and charge of the nanostructures allow better delivery of the bioactives. You're able to target delivery of the bioactives at specific sites and also offer protection. So, for example, stability of the bioactive compound being protected from, for example, the acid in the stomach. So lastly, in this section, we've highlighted from the scientific point of view some of the new and emerging functional ingredients and technologies. And here is a checklist for successful product development, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Equally important, it is to look at the regulatory considerations at the same time at the point of inception. So what things do you need to evaluate? The permissibility of using these ingredients, the permissibility of using the technologies, and the compliance of the intended health claims. And all of these three things differ from market to market. In addition, when you have an idea for a concept and want to use a health claim, you need to think about qualifying and quantifying the health claims, and if a claim is authorized or not in the market you're interested in launching the product. It's wise to put together a claim substantiation document, including a review of the scientific literature. If you'd like to see case studies of work we have done, please email Pretima Tittoria at leatherheadfood.com. Her email will be on the slide at the end of the webinar. She is one of our principal ingredient consultants who specialises in concept review and health claim substantiation. I will now hand over to Annie Law Robin to cover the important regulatory considerations when launching products with emerging functional ingredients.
Thanks, Jenny. So you will recognize this slide that my colleague Jenny showed at the beginning of this webinar. It summarizes the product innovation cycle. We know that it's very tempting for food manufacturers to design and launch products that are promoted as having specific health benefits, especially with all these emerging ingredients and technologies coming up that Jenny has mentioned earlier. However, this is not without challenges, and the regulatory considerations should be kept in mind. So what do we do in Leatherhead? We put our regulatory lens at the point of inception, which is critical and helps de-risk the investment made throughout the innovation pipeline, as well as throughout the R&D process. And this is done in order to streamline research and development efforts and maximize value creation. On the other hand, we also look at the permissibility of usage of certain ingredients in line with the product format. We also look at emerging manufacturing processes that may be employed, and equally important, we look at the formulations of certain products to ensure validity of their claim. This claim could be a nutrition claim, health claim, or marketing claims. And we can even help building a dossier substantiating a health claim. All of these will make for a streamlined and focused process with reduced risks to manufacture, market, and launch a product. And we know as regulatory risk managers that the regulatory framework controlling new food and beverage product is very complex. And it may therefore affect the transfer of this product from one market to another. It is complex because food legislation is not structured the same way across the globe, as you know. And for example, labeling, composition standard, or even pre-market approval rules may differ between markets. And this would definitely affect the transfer of the same product from one market to another. Also, the complexity of applying a regulatory frame could depend on the complexity of the product. So if you look at a genetically modified product, for example, they won't be dealt the same way in Europe compared to the US. The launch of a new product may also be influenced by upcoming legislative development in a given market. So, for example, we know that lots of governments have developed or have implemented sugar tax. Codex Alimentarius also is very influential. So if Codex is updating one of its standards on food additive, for example, it may influence the national law on food additive in certain markets across the globe. And finally, widening the frame and considering the bigger picture can be useful in order to anticipate mid and long-term impact of food legislation on new product launch. With new emerging ingredients and technologies, regulations have never been more important. These primarily exist to protect the consumers, but also they're here for manufacturers of products. Consumer needs to have confidence in the safety of the product they are eating, especially when those contain functional ingredients and bioactive compounds that could influence their bodily functions. So the first step in concept development is to validate whether such functional ingredients are permitted, for example, for food supplement use or food and beverage application. And this may be regulated differently across different markets. This would also include checking on what dosages are perceived as being safe, as well as for these being high enough to induce a health benefit. The second step is to look at emerging technologies. This could be used to produce functional ingredients with improved bioavailability, and it is essential to check on the compliance of these technologies, particularly on whether the use of these technologies will make the product a novel product. If this is the case, then one will need to go through a pre-market food safety assessment process in the EU, for example. And the third step would be the use of any desired or intended nutrition, health, and or marketing claims, because these need to be assessed from a regulatory perspective. And there are two aspects to this. The first one is to validate the formulation of the product against the intended claim at the point of assumption, and also to build up some evidence in a dossier that could be kept in a company database, because using this claim may be challenged by authority and competitor, and that will protect the company against any of those challenges. So overall, it's important to remember that the regulatory frameworks can vary from market to market, leading to a non-harmonized market entry plan for those products. It is therefore important to come up with strategic market entry plan that may account for systematic launches into different regions and for elimination of complicated markets. For the purpose of this webinar, I will focus on nutrition and health and marketing claims that are powerful communication tool when launching new ingredients in different markets. For the other two factors, ingredient permissibility and manufacturing technologies, I've spoke about it in an earlier member webinars. And if you need to access this webinar, please contact our membership help desk. I won't talk about safety and dosages of functional ingredients, but my colleague, Dr. Stephen Ruckman, Head of Human Health at our sister company, TSG, will be speaking about this in a few weeks' time if you're interested. A little bit here of information about the boundaries between food and pharmaceutical products and the validation of claims. So when you look at the inception of a product, formulation check is very important because that's where you have a look at the minimal dosage and concentration of a functional ingredient. And depending on the level of use, this may become a medicine in certain markets. And also the use of claim associated with this ingredient is very important. So the term you are using, so you could see in the box on the right-hand side, the top box shows you the terms you can use for a food claim, health claim, but the one below shows you where the claim becomes a medicine and you cannot use it on a food product. And I'm going to now to talk to you about the case of ginkgo biloba, which can be a food in certain markets or a medicine in others. So on this table, you can see the different status of ginkgo biloba in different European markets and the UK. And as you can see, it can be used in food supplement, but sometimes it is considered medicinal in some markets. And there is also condition of use associated with this ingredient, which are specifically stated in national law. There's also some health benefit which is associated with ginkgo biloba. So, for example, there are some claims that have been submitted and showing the benefit with brain function or blood pressure or even reducing cardiovascular disease risks. And there's also claims that that are linked with lower blood sugar, bleeding and clotting, and so on, or vomiting and diarrhea. But those are more going into medicinal type of claim, which we don't want to use on food product. So as we have just seen ginkgo biloba can be used when using food product only as a food supplement in certain countries. So it's very important when company design a product that they know the permitted use of a functional ingredient in a specific product format. That could be a food and beverage and or food supplement, because these are regulated in different way in different countries. So food supplement and food and beverage can be regulated under the same regulation, for example, in Switzerland and Argentina. For Australia, Europe, and the UK, they are regulated under separate regulation. And for the United States, it's very similar structure to the UK one, but there is a slight difference in requirement, instruction, and function claims, which are called health claim in Europe. And I'm going now to talk more about claims in my next slide. So I'm sure you are aware already that there are 3 different types of claims that you could apply to food product: nutrition claims, health claim, and marketing claims. And the next 4 slide, we show you how health claims are regulated differently in 4 different markets. So we have the European Union, India, US, and China. This slide shows you how health claims are regulated in the European Union. Then as a comparison, you can see how legislation in India is structured for health claim. Then we're moving on to America, which has another way of dealing with health claim, as you can see on this diagram. Finally, we've got China, where health claim can only be used on health food products. So there is a specific category there. which include food supplement, and health claim cannot be used on normal food products. So normal food product will be something which hasn't been fortified. So taking the European Union as an example, you can see on this table that nutrition claims, health claim, and marketing claims are very well regulated in the European Union. And we have given you here some example of functional ingredients which you can associate with cognitive, gut, skin, and stress health benefits, especially the line on health claim. We have highlighted in green, those can be currently used in the European Union. The red one cannot be used, and the orange one are currently what we call on hold health claim. And for the marketing claim, this can be used on product as long as an approved health claim can justify the use of those marketing claims. So now to summarize, when developing a new product, lots of factors influence it, so consumer demand, new technology, new science. But the main point to consider is also regulatory compliance, which will make sure that you have a good strategy for global market entry plan and obtain a streamlined process with reduced risk with your investment. And the key takeaway points from this webinar today are there are a growing market for functional ingredient with health benefit and from natural sources. Design eco-concept is critical, so the source and the bioavailability of the functional ingredient is very important to consider. And having the regulatory lens at the point of exception is also critical, as we have seen. Checking the permissibility and the safety or even the manufacturing process of the functional ingredient may have an influence on this regulatory status. So, for example, it may become novel and require a pre-market safety assessment. And the last point is about using claims, so nutrition, health, and marketing claim, and making sure you can substantiate those in order to justify their use on your product. And it's the last point that is not listed here. It's always important not to fall into the medicinal category and always check national legislation on whether or not your functional ingredient may be classified as a medicine.
Okay, thank you very much, Annie-Laure, for that insightful section on regulatory compliance. So now we have some questions. If you want to send us a question, please put it into the chat box. If we don't get a chance to get through all the questions, what we will do is get in touch with you afterwards to answer your question. And if afterwards you have a question that you want to answer, please email it to membership@leatherheadfood.com. And again, just a reminder that Pratima Tutoria's email address is there, and she's our ingredient specialist who focuses on concept reviews and health claims substantiation. Okay, Annie-Laure, I've got some questions coming in here. Okay. The first one here, how would I know which botanical I can use in specific food applications?
So we know that we will need to refer to legislation because botanical are regulated differently from market to market. So we will need to check if the botanical or any other derivative is permitted in that market, and if so, at what level it is permitted. Because as I mentioned in my talk here today, some botanical may be considered medicinal in certain markets because of the dosage level. So there are restrictions definitely on the use of botanical depending on where you are in the world. If the botanical itself is not permitted, it may be because it's considered a new ingredient in that market, and especially in the European Union, it may be considered novel. And then you will have to go down to the route of applying for novel food approval, basically basing your dossier on what is required for novel food dossier to be assessed by the European Food Safety Authority. So thank you.
Okay, so I've got another question here. Do nanotechnologies require novel food approval? And if so, why?
So especially in the European Union, yes, food which are engineered nanomaterial require pre-market approval, and that will be done under the novel food legislation. There is a specific category for this specific ingredient under the legislation. And why this need to be assessed for the safety? Because we don't know about the effect of nanotechnology on the bioavailability or digestibility of those nanoparticles in the human body, and we don't know if they can cause harm. So that's why this pre-market safety assessment has been put in place for nanomaterial in the European Union.
Okay, lovely, lovely. Thank you very much. I have another one here. If I want to use a recognised health claim, do I need to have a dossier of evidence? Under what circumstances do I need a substantiation dossier?
So again, for health claim, the rules are very different if you go to Europe or US or China. So if you take the example of the European Union, if the health claim you want to use is authorized, as long as you meet the condition of use of this health claim, you are free basically to use it on your product, because you can refer this use to what has been agreed on the food law. If the health claim you want to use in Europe is currently not authorized, so not even listed as a dossier submission in the European Commission Register on Nutrition and Health Claim, the company will need to basically submit a dossier to apply for approval of this health claim. And that's, again, a quite lengthy process in Europe. You need to fill up lots of evidence showing the benefit of this ingredient compared to the health claim. And this will be, again, assessed by the European Food Safety Authority. If we take another market like the US, for example, if you want to make a structured function claim, we advise that substantiation dossier is made in order to protect yourself from the authority or competitor or consumer that may challenge the use of this claim. Overall, an application dossier for health claim is quite heavy work to do, and it includes also the provision of toxicological data, clinical study, and often the authority, especially in the US, make an assessment of this dossier. So that's all I have to say about health claim.
Okay. And we've got time for one final question here, and it's on novel ingredients and whether any structure function claims can be made on them in the EU if not listed in the health claims articles.
So the simple answer is no. If there is no health claim that has been approved for a specific novel ingredient in Europe, you would have again to apply for approval through the health claim dossier approval system in the European Union. And that means submitting a dossier to the European Commission showing that the health benefit provided by this novel food ingredient can be substantiated through scientific studies. So there's no way you can, for example, submit a dossier, use your claim, and wait for the assessment to be completed. You will have to wait for the European Food Safety Authority to assess the health claim dossier on the novel food ingredient before you can use this health claim in Europe.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Annie-Laure, for answering those questions. If you have any other questions that you've submitted that we haven't had a chance to answer, we will be getting in touch with you over the next few days. If you think of any questions afterwards, please do email membership@leatherheadfood.com. Thank you very much for joining this webinar, and I hope that you will join us for our next webinar, which is on the 26th of May, which will be on meat alternatives, and Annie-Laure Robin will be presenting that one as well. Thanks very much and goodbye.